Today, nearly 40 million Americans claim African ancestry. It make up about 12% of the U.S. population. More than just a statistic, this community represents a powerful story of resilience, culture, and impact, shaping the very heart of America. The story of African Americans is one of survival, resilience, and triumph. It begins centuries ago, not in America, but in Africa, where thriving civilizations flourished. Then came the Transatlantic Slave Trade, tearing millions from their homelands and forcing them into brutal bondage.
African American history of civil rights movement is marked by resilience, struggle, and contributions to the U.S. In 1619, the first recorded Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, where they were initially treated as indentured servants, similar to some poor Europeans who worked under contracts for a period of years in exchange for freedom. However, over time, the status of Africans in Virginia shifted from indentured servitude to racialized chattel slavery. By 1705, Virginia's laws fully institutionalized slavery, stripping Black people of any legal rights and making their enslavement permanent. This event in 1619 is often cited as the beginning of slavery in what would become the United States and ends on 1865 of over 250 years of racial slavery in America. The Civil Rights Movement was more than a series of protests. It was a powerful demand for justice, equality, and the dignity of African Americans. It shaped the laws we follow today and continues to influence the fight for human rights worldwide. The movement led to increasing tensions between the North and South, contributing to the outbreak of the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation, 1863, by Abraham Lincoln freed enslaved people in Confederate states, and the 13th Amendment, 1865, officially abolished slavery in the U.S. The abolitionist struggle laid the foundation for future civil rights movements. By 1877, Reconstruction ended. Federal troops withdrew from the South, and the promise of true equality faded. With Reconstruction over, white lawmakers quickly rolled back Black progress through Jim Crow laws, legalizing segregation, suppressing Black voters, and enforcing racial discrimination for decades. The Black church was at the heart of early civil rights activism, serving as a refuge and a planning ground for protests. Leaders like Du Bois and Booker T. Washington debated strategies for racial uplift. Du Bois pushed for immediate equality through activism, while Washington advocated for vocational education and economic progress. The Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s and 1930s gave African Americans a new cultural voice through literature, music, and art, shaping how Black identity was seen in America. The Great Migration saw millions of African Americans move from the South to northern cities, where they sought better opportunities and organized for racial justice. This migration fueled movements like A. Philip Randolph's Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, which fought for labor rights, and the activism of Black newspapers, which exposed racial injustices nationwide. World War II highlighted the contradiction of African Americans fighting for democracy abroad while being denied basic rights at home. This contradiction set the stage for the civil rights movement to explode in the 1950s.
The civil rights movement was defined by courageous individuals who risked everything to fight for justice. Martin Luther King emerged as a leader of nonviolent resistance. His role in the Montgomery bus boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks's arrest, demonstrated the power of collective action. Meanwhile, Malcolm X championed Black nationalism and self-defense, challenging the idea that nonviolence was the only solution. Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker empowered grassroots organizers, emphasizing that the movement belonged to the people, not just the leaders. There were also key legal victories. Thurgood Marshall led the charge in Brown v. Board of Education, which declared school segregation unconstitutional. These leaders were part of major events that shaped history. The Montgomery bus boycott crippled the public transportation system, forcing change. The Little Rock Nine faced violent mobs just to attend school. The Freedom Rides challenged segregation in public transportation. The March on Washington brought over 250,000 people to demand racial and economic justice. The Selma to Montgomery marches and Bloody Sunday highlighted the brutal violence faced by peaceful protesters. These efforts led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, outlawing segregation and protecting Black voters. The civil rights movement faced fierce resistance. White supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan terrorized activists. The FBI's COINTELPRO program targeted leaders like King and Malcolm X, attempting to discredit them. After King's assassination in 1968, frustration grew. The Black Panther Party emerged, advocating for self-defense and community programs. Activists like Stokely Carmichael embraced Black power, shifting the movement toward racial pride and economic self-determination. The movement also left a lasting mark on culture. James Baldwin's writings exposed racial injustices. Soul, gospel, and hip-hop music carried messages of resistance. Black athletes like Muhammad Ali took bold stands against racism. The movement inspired other struggles. Women's rights and indigenous activism all took lessons from the civil rights movement's strategies. The civil rights movement did not end in the 1960s. It evolved. Between 1910 and 1970, millions of Black Americans left the South in what became known as the Great Migration, seeking jobs, education, and a better future in cities like Chicago, New York, and Detroit.
Today, movements like Black Lives Matter continue the fight against police brutality and systemic racism. Voter suppression, economic inequality, and mass incarceration are modern battles echoing past struggles.
There are many influential African American personalities across various fields. Martin Luther King, leader of the civil rights movement, known for his "I Have a Dream" speech. Rosa Parks, civil rights activist known for refusing to give up her bus seat. Malcolm X, civil rights leader advocating Black empowerment and self-defense. Barack Obama, 44th U.S. President and the first African American president. Elected in 2008, he served 2 terms. Kamala Harris, in 2021, first Black female Vice President of the U.S. Thurgood Marshall, first African American Supreme Court Justice. He was appointed in 1967 and fought for civil rights through law. Michael Jackson, King of Pop, one of the best-selling musicians ever, with over 70 million copies sold worldwide. Beyoncé, global pop icon and influential artist. Muhammad Ali, legendary boxer and activist. Serena Williams, one of the greatest tennis players in history.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more history content. Let us know in the comments which part of African American history you found most interesting. See you in the next one.